These agents are certainly strange ones, I must admit. Especially this lady. Her mannerisms and behavior almost strike me more as a common Reichslander than a lady of nobility. But one should not judge. The truth is the same has often been said of my dear Emmeline. Yet I do not feel dishonesty here in regard to their intent. I think they truly do believe they are here to help. The idea of a smuggling ring running through the picket line, though, does seem strange. I mean, I could perhaps believe that there was a link leading outwards, but through the picket line to the keep itself. They've always seemed above such things, happy to wait in the dark and feed on our fear. Sometimes, I have even wondered if their position is only so strong because they keep a defensive front. I wonder if perhaps if they were to attack, while they would do great damage, they would eventually lose. Do they know this? After all, it is better to hold the line forever than risk losing it, yes. It's certainly a strategy. I'm glad Emmeline has given these people a chance. though. If they do find something amiss, it must be dealt with. Not just for the Empire and for the people at this picket line, but for my Emmeline. She has spent so much of her life trying to make something of this position. A position that was never a reward. That doesn't matter to me, of course. Wherever she goes, I will die by her side. I just pray to Myrmidia that does not come soon, because we were caught unaware of a plot or scheme. I hope these people find what they are looking for. This is Red Moon Roleplaying. The afternoon is starting to draw in early, it seems, despite it still being the summer months. But then again, you are quite high up in the mountains. Maybe darkness comes quicker here for some reason. Suffice to say, you suddenly all find yourselves converging at the same point. Lady Siegfrieda, you and Gerner have just been making your way along, and you just find yourselves looking at Kruger and Heinrich as they are suddenly coming from the south, and you all suddenly just meet each other. What do you do?
I'm just saying that if there are any of these dwarven ruins, I'm talking a bit more invigoratedly now than before to Lady Siegfrieda, nearby, they could be connected somehow. If we should try and find the nearest one just to investigate.
I completely agree. I think that if there's a mystery here, well, leaving them sat there with no one exploring them it's inviting the enemy to make its way to us, isn't it?
Oh, there you are. Heinrich as well.
Yes, we had a lovely little interview with the quartermaster, didn't we, Heinrich?
Oh, delightful man, really.
There's a lovely dwarf over there also. We found some black powder. It's been what seems like someone has been selling the good stuff on the side to get some money for themselves, and the quartermaster pointed out the sergeant, the one that we met. Sergeant Otfried, was it?
Yes.
Yes, Sergeant Otfried, as being responsible for that. Now, and this is not unheard of, getting a little bit of extra coin by losing some of the supplies that are supposed to come in. I mean, it's not like anyone's going to invade this place, so what's the harm, right?
Are these connected to the kegs that were lost found by you in Interfraus? I say, and look at Heinrich as well.
That remains to be seen, but yes, my suspicion is pointing in that direction.
No, I do look back to Kruger at this point. Sorry to interrupt you. Just a train of thought.
No worries. I was thinking that we could have a conversation with the sergeant then, and we'll see if there's more to this than simple greed.
Sounds like a plan. We've been up to the palisade, and I can confirm that there are things going on in that fort, though far off in the distance. They say, you mentioned something of them looking at them with their telescopes and seeing things in the distance occasionally. I turned to Siegfrieda.
Yes, it's something that we would probably are well equipped, I would suggest, to investigate. I wouldn't necessarily trust it to some of the blockheads who are working this picket line.
There's proper magic going on out there. I saw the tainted essence of Dar and something else as well. Something sinister.
When you say magic, do you mean magic in the, yeah, Gerner does magic, but he's an okay guy kind of magic, or magic as in the...
I mean, not associated with the 7 winds that we work with. If you combine 2 winds, you might get Dar, which is a sort of chaotic, going everywhere sort of essence, which is usually quite foul if it's not elves manipulated, but I think when they do it, they don't actually turn us into Dar somehow. I'm rambling. And something that was far beyond that. I could only speculate that it has something to do with other ways of creating energy outside of the way that any of the, friendly racists would be doing, I think. I'm thinking some sort of direct chaos magic.
Oh. Well then. That would at least explain the source of whatever's getting into the powder. It's just to connect the dots together.
Oh, I have a feeling it's maybe doing more than that. Well, Gerner came down quite ill when he perceived it. And judging by the fear everyone is exhibiting here, it doesn't to me seem natural that people who have been manning posts for 50 years would still be so afraid. Boredom, maybe. Boredom makes sense. Even infighting due to that boredom, and smuggling, skimming from the top, that all makes perfect sense. But the fear that's here, that tells me that there is, and I'm no expert on magic, obviously, but some kind of infectious, maybe mental suggestion that is emanating from that direction and getting into the minds of the people here.
Infectious.
Oh, you think they're being manipulated somehow?
It could simply be that so many of them are scared because of the stories, but in my experience, 50 years is a couple of generations worth of guards. Do you know? It seems unlikely to me that someone would be standing a post here and would be as terrified of what lurks over the horizon as the last person who actually witnessed something 50 years ago without some kind of infectious influence. Now, whether that is something that could be treated medicinally or surgically, or whether it is purely a matter of magic, is something we would have to investigate.
And it's while your friends are all talking, Kruger, that you then just notice someone on a horse just come past you, slowly, and start making their way to the bridge. Oh, there's the sergeant, on a horse, slowly leaving the picket line.
I'll try to move up closer without drawing his suspicion. He's still riding pretty slowly, or?
Yes.
Do I have any kind of chance of catching up with him here, or is he, because he's on horse, he's gonna definitely outrun us?
Eventually, he definitely will, yes, but at this moment in time, you maybe have a few seconds, just step in his way, politely.
Well, then I shall do just that. Ah, Sergeant, I'll say as I've stepped in his way.
Yep. Oh, sir, forgive me, sorry, I've got urgent business I need to attend to.
Oh, I'm certain that you do. You know that we're here to investigate a disappearance of some... Well, there's some black powder that's gone missing, and...
Oh, terrible. Sorry, sir, urgent orders from the commander. I need to go to Phalanx Tower at once. Sorry, sir. And he begins trying to move his horse around you.
I'm afraid I must insist that you step down. You see, the evidence points to... Well, to you, actually. How strange.
All of you see this happening, and you all see him look, and suddenly rein up his horse, and he's clearly going to try and make a run for it. What do you all do?
I start reaching for my crossbow, but it takes time, so hopefully someone's faster.
Well, as quickly as I have to try and put these pieces together, not really knowing that this is the one that we're immediately looking for. I can see what Kruger is doing, of course, and that he is either about to be run over or something else where this sergeant is getting away. This just clicks together in my mind as quickly as I can swing up my staff and trying to unman the horse and get this sergeant off it, down on the ground.
It's not the first time you've done this, Gunner Stark. Make a weapon skill roll at a -20. That's because he is on a horse, and also he is an armoured individual, but let's see how you do.
Well, at first, I don't succeed. I try and swing around, make it a spinning motion for the second strike. Oh my. I didn't think I would succeed with that -20, but this is a 19 then under 30.
He begins riding off on the horse, but you dart towards the bridge, aim your spear, and tell us how you quickly knock him off.
This actually comes as a 2 swing, sort of a spin actually. I go for him once, he ducks away, and I spin in the air as I'm jumping, and with surprising agility, with someone seemingly wearing these quite heavy robes, the staff comes around with the other metal-clad end, and it whacks him over the chest with such force that even with that armor, it just pushes him straight off.
And off he goes, flying off his horse and landing almost into the stream, but luckily not quite. There is a shout of outrage. He says, "What on earth are you doing?" You notice, Siegfrieda, as this happens, an awful lot of soldiers walking by suddenly look quite concerned. Some of them even start going for their weapons. This is very logical. To everyone watching, it looks like you're randomly assaulting a sergeant. What do? You think you might need to calm the situation before you start getting accused of attacking people for no reason?
Well, if there's one thing I'm good at, it's calming social situations. I'll make sure Erica is by my side. I will address the crowd. Everybody stand back! This man behind us right now is a traitor and will be judged by the Inquisition for being such. The words escape my mouth before I even really consider them. But I do know that very few people are prepared to risk their own lives to cross the Inquisition, whether they like their judgment or not. By crossing them, you are kind of labelling yourself as an enemy of the Inquisition.
That is very true. But more importantly, you have a lovely dog by your side, Erica, growling very fiercely. And of course, for the first time in a while, as you've said, sometimes being a noble is inconvenient, but sometimes quite useful. So please make your intimidate roll with a +20. Or leadership, actually.
With +20?
Yes.
Okay. Well, either way, I rolled 21, so that's absolutely fine, because my leadership with +20 is 69.
They all do pause. Granted, they outnumber you. There are a whole lot of soldiers here, and they do look very concerned, but between your dog and your command, they do all seem to pause for a moment. You do notice the priestess herself is making her way over, but she won't be there just yet. She looks concerned. But it does work. It seems from the moment they're all holding back. Kruger and Heinrich, what do? Gerner has gone forward with quite impressive speed and just straight up clonked this guy off his horse with that staff. That takes a bit of strength. Seems to be more to Gerner than you'd maybe think for a wizard. But he's done it. What do you two do?
I'll move up with my crossbow and I have it pointed at him to make sure that he doesn't get any ideas of running or trying to fight us or something like that.
Yeah, it's an outrage! They defy the commander's will! It's all true, isn't it? You were here for the Dodbringers! I knew it!
You're gonna tell us everything that you know about, well, who's been buying that black powder from you? The black powder that you've been skimming from the storage. who's gotten you into that, and what's really going on here?
He splutters a little and clamps his mouth shut. But as that happens, you notice the priestess come over to the group. She frowns. Do you actually have a reason to be questioning the sergeant?
Yes, we have made investigations in the warehouse, and we found out that the sergeant is responsible for selling off some of the supplies that are actually supposed to come here. He's put you all in danger with faulty black powder.
That is terrible news. Everyone stand down, stand down. Alright, take the sergeant in there and do what you need to do. But please, only make sure this is all correct. He is a sergeant.
Oh, of course. And I'll look to Heinrich to see if he'll help me to get the man up.
Oh, more than happy to.
Then you drag him into a place you're directed to that just seems one of the barracks buildings, but it's currently empty. And it doesn't take long for all four of you to be inside. And with this man, what do you do with him? How do you start your interrogation?
I'll look to Heinrich first, then, who's perhaps, quite familiar with interrogations. I mean, I am too, but I don't quite have the stomach for it.
You certainly have been schooled more than most would be. At the same time, no need to make a roll. This is a soldier, a military man. You're not seeing anything yet that screams die-hard cultist. You almost think that maybe the old-fashioned way of intimidating people might work, at least initially.
When you have all you have is a hammer, every problem's a nail, right?
Exactly.
I suppose I will have finally holstered my pistol and then just crossing my arms over my chest. Sergeant, you've sworn a number of oaths in your career, and no doubt you have had to deal with all kinds of disciplinary problems in your ranks. Do you know how this works?
I do. This is an outrage. I knew you little spies. I knew it. Coming here, I can't believe you may have convinced the priestess, but when the commander hears about this...
When the commander hears that you have been undermining her situation by skimming off supplies, or when my commander hears that your fingerprints are on barrels that have been showing up near outbreaks of chaos in the Empire, who should we tell first?
I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. All lies.
I'm sure you don't. But if you were to perhaps remember something in the next, 60 seconds, it'll change the kind of conversation that I have with your superior and with mine.
Sure, yeah, why you got the quartermaster in here? He's the quartermaster. If anyone was stealing supplies, it would be him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, we've heard that story also.
Well, there you go then. He's a liar.
I would very carefully rethink your decision to interrupt me as we had this conversation, Sergeant.
He gives you a moment. He gives you a bit of a look, a stare, clearly trying to gauge you. Would you like to make an intimidate roll? Give yourself a +10.
There we go. 21 under 47.
You think you get the gauge of the man, Heinrich? He is tough. Of course he is. He's a soldier. And he's definitely going to try and spin you a bunch of lies, but you wonder how brave he'll be if you just put a pistol straight to his head. Say, speak or I'll pull the trigger. You don't think he'll immediately start weeping and crying, but you don't think you're going to need to torture him too much. Not if he thinks you really are willing to straight up kill him.
Oh, the pistol is such a blunt instrument, but a rapier is sharp, and you can raise it up under someone's jawline, hypothetically, and push it just under the soft underside of their palate. Sergeant, this would be the easy way to take care of the problem. But you know that people of my order, we don't just simply execute traitors and witches.
No, but no, you can't do that. I'm not a bloody witch. You can't just do that.
Oh, I assure you I can. That's the one thing people know about witch hunters. Isn't that right? And I'll ask around the room, what's the one thing we know about witch hunters?
I stand in the corner, holding my staff, feeling a bit excited from the little thing we had just outside, and I look up and I say, well, they do just pretty much what they want, don't they?
You got no proof. You can't just make me confess to things under duress. It's not how it works. He says, sounding quite nervous.
Isn't it? It works like that quite often, actually, I say.
Not to mention, Kruger, when you think about it, you're starting to think you finally do have proof. It occurs to you if you were a thief and a criminal, which of course you're not anymore. If you were going to swap out black powder barrels, maybe it would make sense to put something in their place to make it seem as if everything's fine when actually those barrels are going somewhere else. You might even try and repaint the sigils on them, and they might not look perfect.
Yes. The work done to make those barrels look like the old ones, it was a bit shoddy, I must say. Did you do that by yourself?
You...
I'll open up my grimoire on the side there, and I'm going to start recanting a spell called Hush. I just want to make sure that whatever we do in here, the sounds won't come out of the place.
Well, as you're starting to cast that spell, he immediately starts saying, Right. Hey, look! There you go, there's a witch! He can't do that! He can't do that! What's he doing? You're not allowed to do that!
Oh, I think the witch hunter is okay with it. I looked to Heinrich.
Oh, indeed. Yes. The difference, I think, between my friend Gerner here and yourself is that he has been sanctioned by the Empire to do the things that he does.
And I stand there and I keep mumbling for a while and moving my hands in different enchantments until it's done. It won't make a difference in here, but it will create a sphere for us.
Well then, you will need to cast it.
I actually just needed one... I did 2 channeling. The first one didn't succeed, so I didn't get any...
Just a normal failure, though.
Any more success. Yes, a normal failure. The second one... Yeah, the second one got it down to just 1. And then I rolled a critical success.
Well, unfortunately for you, Gerner, in this situation there's no real benefit to critically casting Hush. As you try and gather the magics, as you try and channel the winds, initially it's quite simple as the shadows begin moving around you. But then just as you speak the words, you suddenly notice that you didn't quite do the right movement with your hand. You suddenly feel a lot of energy beginning to pulse from you. The sergeant begins screaming, as everyone else outside doesn't really seem to notice. After all, from their point of view, they can no longer hear what's happening in here, even though they can see it. But for Siegfrieda, Heinrich, and Kruger, you suddenly notice the shadows in the room are starting to move quite unnaturally, and there seems to be a sudden breeze in the air. Could you please roll a D100, Gerner Stark?
I roll a 90, which means I'm going to get an arcane mark associated with Ulgo.
In that case, you do find yourself being marked. You can feel it, Gerner. It's not fatefully that visible, the mark at least, although it is. You can feel it on your body. Something is happening.
I've rolled the arcane marks of Ulgo, and I have gotten a 2, which means Mantle of Mist. Mist, fog, smoke, and other vapors seem drawn to your side. Stealth tests in foggy, misty, or hazy areas benefit from 1 plus success level.
You're not sure where it is on your body this happens, Gerner, but somewhere you just feel a bit of an itch. For everyone else, the room begins to fill, just for a moment, with a dark fog. Bloody! Alright, I'll speak! Fucking stop him! Stop him, Inquisitor! He's gonna kill us all! You have to admit, Heinrich, this is impressive. What's he doing? It does feel suddenly quite cold in here.
It's cold and unsettling. I assume this is what Gerner meant to do, so I don't know. I actually know what the spell was supposed to do. I think that he is just making a show that creates this effect. So I'm going along with it. Indeed, that's the first spell, and the second one is much, much worse. You saw how long it took him to cast it. That's about how long you have to tell me the truth.
How you feeling, Gurner? You notice everyone else seems to be reacting like this was planned, but you kind of panic. You need to stop now. You need to stop casting the spell now. This is dangerous.
I just do that. I can feel the spell settle in the room, just like it's done before in that regard, but something else is happening too. And for some reason it feels like it's just something around me. Something is settling. Settling, that's the word. Just as I feel something slowly just make its mark on me. And then it stops. And I just feel it rest there as something in my chest, or in my... Yes, something in my chest that just sits there, and I feel it almost pulsating.
Certainly. And as that happens, again, the shadows start to dissipate a little. But again, even you notice it, Kruger. You hear something fall to the ground as a glass nearby on one of the tables just shatters. That was an impressive, mild trick, you think to yourself.
Yes. Well, the important thing now is to try to utilize this and to use the fact that the man seems absolutely scared shitless. So this is the time for him to spill the beans.
Fine! Fine! Alright, you bastards. Yes, it's me! It's me. Yes. I'm not stealing the black powder, yes.
For money? Just greed? Or...
Why else would I do it? You think I get paid well here?
Probably not. Who are you selling it to?
The Yellow Fang. Yeah, I'm one of them. And the good news at least is that you're wasting your time here. You think you've outsmarted them? You think you've outsmarted my employers? You haven't. This is a massive waste if they led you here to get me. Good news, you've been distracted from something actually important.
Huh. Something in Middenheim, then?
I don't know.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about the Yellow Fang, actually? We've been very curious about your group. I mean, what are your goals? What is it that you're trying to achieve?
He again looks at Gurner, spits on the ground, shakes his head. What on earth does that even matter? Don't you already know? How much don't you actually know? I know I made up a few things about you lot, but you're supposed to know something.
Consider for a moment that we already do know, and we're waiting to see if you tell us the truth.
Fine. I'll tell you the truth. This is... Shit. All I wanted was to get a bit more money, not die out there, but I guess I'll be dying at your hands. But, alright, I'll tell you, but as long as you promise it's a nice... I'm not a fucking witch, alright? No pliers. And I suppose the rope. No, don't let that one near me.
I smile. Where do you meet them? Where do you hand it over?
To do the handovers, just down, a day or so with one of the villages. Comes and goes, I'll make sure to swap the barrels out and the maps, and it all goes to where it has to go.
Who's your contact? Where do you get your orders, and who picks up the supplies?
Well, they don't obviously give me their name. There's a woman. We've got contacts in Middenheim. Apparently they got someone in the Sewer Jacks. This is all information you already know. You already know the leadership of this little group, at least the Middenheim group, and you already know they've fled the city. But of course, it would occur to you this man would not know that.
No, but good for him that he did tell the truth.
So yes, as I was asking, the overall goals. I mean, there must be something bigger to this than just the money and the excitement, right?
Well, of course. Survival.
Right.
When they come, which they're going to. They're coming soon, and if you don't serve, you will die. So we're serving.
And I've heard that before, of course, from several groups now, yes?
That's true, you have. Although, to be fair, it's not quite said in this way. The last person who said that was that last Yellow Fang member, before he was taken off and interrogated and, of course, executed.
And before that, Purple Hand members also had similar thoughts, did they not?
No. No, they didn't say it the same way. You think about it. What did he say? Well, again, you haven't spoken to too many. You've been letting others do the interrogation, but you do remember the man who it turned out was the Magister Mysteri. He said survival, but he said it in a more grandiose way, a sort of more we were going to rule a city kind of way. This man's saying it a lot like the other guy, like as if he actually means it, as if this is actually how you survive.
Fascinating.
Also, he said several times he's not a witch, and he seems quite terrified of the man using magic.
Do you know any witches?
No! No, I'm not... I don't serve the arch-enemy, you idiots!
Well,
They're not the arch-enemy, they're not Chaos. They're far worse. But they're not friends with them either, I don't think they are, at least.
and I'll look to Heinrich and Gerner and to Siegfrieda to see if one of them has a burning question that they want to ask this captive of ours.
I'm curious myself, when he says this, that they're not serving the arch enemy, can I roll an intuition roll just to get if he actually believes this himself?
You certainly can, yes.
Okay, so that's, 38 under 45, so 1 level of success.
Yes, he definitely believes that. Very adamant, in fact. Doesn't serve the arch enemy. You have to admit, in all your experiences with the Purple Hand, they never actually were ashamed of what they were doing. Some people said they didn't know full stop, but when they were confessing, they never said, we don't serve the arch enemy. In fact, they were quite happy to serve. If they were confessing in this manner, at least.
I fold my arms and I say, he actually believes that the Yellow Fang aren't agents of chaos.
In fairness, he also believed he'd get away with this.
And he says they're coming and the Yellow Fang will be willing to serve. So I'm not terribly inclined to... Not that it's... And I say to Heinrich and Kruger, this is obviously your purview more than it is mine. But he's hardly someone that we could let go or... or easily forgive. I wouldn't say that's our place to do.
Not even remotely, and Heinrich, you're not under that illusion. The man said it himself. He doesn't think he's getting out of this. He just doesn't want you to kill him in a horrific manner.
No, and if he believes in fact he's not a servant of chaos, then I suppose it would fall to his commander's justice. I suppose it doesn't matter which hangman pulls the rope, so long as he meets his end. I'll give the commander the pleasure of dispatching their own troops. I'm sure she will be willing to do the justice. If not, there's a first time for everything.
It's also a very good way of outing any potential cohorts this individual has. Allow them to turn on each other. Say that any who name their collaborators get lesser sentences or something like that.
He starts laughing. Sorry, you're not gonna get any of that. You think we've infiltrated the whole fucking place? You think they're that stupid? No, lovely quartermaster Willett Habit, he's involved. Hang him, definitely hang him. But I'm afraid it's just us two. Everyone else is, well, down the lines. So, you're not gonna get anything. You've wasted your time here. You've uncovered me. You're gonna get me hung. But you haven't stopped them.
It's hanged, you idiot, I say, walking over to him. And I will have you know that as a lady, you cannot use that kind of language to address me, and your desire to not be killed in some squalid, painful fashion, while ultimately my friends here are the arbiters of that. I can spend a little bit of time with you beforehand to make sure that you regret some of your words. Believe me, I've done it before.
He does pale a little, but he tries to cover it up. Fine then. It's not like I have a choice. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They already know. They know everything. They'll know I've talked. And I'm fucked either way. But guess what? So are you four. They're gonna know you're snooping. They're gonna come for you. They're everywhere, in the shadows, listening.
Well, I've heard quite enough of this. No need to... Now that we've reached the cultist babble phase of the interrogation, I'm getting quite bored.
Indeed, Kruger. You have your evidence. This is more than enough to convince the commander of the threat. Granted, something is still irritating you a little. What does he mean he doesn't serve chaos? Of course he serves chaos. This cult serves chaos, doesn't it? In the investigation of them, you have to admit there's been no evidence of that. But, again, your superiors have told you they obviously are serving something. Beastmen, maybe. A beastman cult. A strange beastman cult, you have to admit, because most beastman cults are more the sorts who go into the woods and pretend to be beastmen. They don't smuggle things like normal criminals. But maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe you have enough.
But I am curious. I did ask the question before of who they serve. So let me just get this straight. You don't serve chaos, yes?
No. We serve them.
What about beastmen, then? You serve beastmen?
Oh, they're not beastmen. Not any beastmen I've ever seen, no. They're the ratmen. We serve the ratmen! They're real! They always have been! They can come out of the shadows when they wish, and there's thousands of them. Thousands of them! Under every city, in every nook and cranny! You see him look into the corners of the room. They'll be here now, and they'll be listening. And they'll know you're watching. They'll know you're looking. And you're going to regret messing with them.
I'll lean closer to him. I've seen them. I know they're real. So you serve them?
It's the only option. We can't beat them. It's just a matter of time before they take over the whole empire. The world.
Funny how you're so convinced of that.
He's seen them. He's seen them.
Yes. Well, look. Is there any way? I mean, we're going to try. You know that, right? We're going to try and save people. We're going to try and stop them. Is there anything you can say to help us? Anything that you know of where they might be, how we might get to them?
Yes. Look down. They're everywhere. The Empire's doomed. It's only a matter of time. And I don't know about you, but the way things are going at the moment, I'm feeling that time's coming soon. We're all fucked. But I guess I'll be not seeing it. That might be a good thing, I guess. Now think about it. Maybe it is better to be young.
Small mercies, I suppose. I'll look to the others.
I close up my grimoire, and I feel a bit uneasy. This thing he's saying of ratmen. I've not seen ratmen.
No, you haven't. You've heard the stories, of course. Got told at bedtime that if you didn't eat all your vegetables, the ratmen would come from beneath and take you away. But the ratmen have never existed, or if they did, it's only stories. Maybe that everyone knows the stories that hundreds and hundreds of years ago, some beastmen were killed, and apparently they were a bit like rats, but, well, beastmen are strange creatures, and no one thinks too much more of it.
Yeah. And as the spell starts to fade away, I think on what he said, that they're everywhere and they can see everything and that they're hiding. And I feel a bit dirty somehow, having used my magic, and I think of that twisted scent of Olgo that was left behind in that alley. That strange work of shadowmancy. And I get paranoid for a second, thinking that maybe there is something in here that's seeing us or that's listening to us.
You remember the words of your mentor, the Yellow Fang. They're coming. You remember the disappearances. Quite a few people have been disappearing in Middenheim lately.
It seems like they are quite powerful. They're just infiltrating somehow. I mustn't let this show in front of everyone else. So at this point, I'm just trying to be smoothly packing away my grimoire and waiting for them to finish up. Best I don't say anything, lest I give my worries away.
if none of you have any more questions, it does seem as if you have everything you need. The man has confessed, and you actually have evidence as well. The black powder barrels here have been being swapped. You can point them out, you have the other evidence, you have this man's confession. This is more than enough, you feel, to take to the commander. Unless, of course, anyone wants to ask any final questions of this person.
I think I've gotten the answers that I wanted. And the realization that this has something to do with those things that I saw down below the castle, well, it does make me feel very ill at ease.
Heinrich? Siegfrieda?
Nothing from me. I think the Inquisitors have done their job.
Nothing here. Unless he has a specific request about the kind of rope we'll use.
No. An hour passes. You take this man to the commander with the priestess in tow. You reveal your case, your evidence. When you're presenting this all, Kruger, will you say it seems as if this quartermaster was simply forced to help? Or will you bring him in as well? Definitely think he's involved in some way, but a part of your intuition does notice it's quite interesting that this man named him and only him, almost as if he just wants to see this man hung, which he will be hung if you decide that he is also part of all this, although you have to admit, it did seem to you more likely that he was simply a normal criminal. After all, why would he have given you any of that information if he was actually as involved as this man is? But the choice, of course, is yours.
Well, my intuition at the time was that he wasn't part of the grand conspiracy. He's just an opportunist, maybe. Nothing to get killed over, and I think I'll just leave him be and not put this on him any further.
Interesting. What do you think makes you do that? Is it perhaps that intuition, as you said? Maybe he's just a normal rogue. The sort of rogue you once were.
Yes, something along those lines.
After all, he was, in a weird way, willing to help you initially. And that would have been odd if he truly didn't want anything being discovered.
Yes, no, he's not someone that needs to be punished in that way. Hopefully, he will have learned a lesson and he'll try to stay on the straight and narrow from here on out. But enough people have been hung. We've gotten the one that really was behind this.
Then, despite the sergeant screaming that he's definitely involved and should be hung as well, you'll be able to silence that and simply present the case that this man is a traitor. He has been stealing black powder barrel plans for the location itself and working with these Yellow Fang. It's not long before he's taken away and you're there with the commander. He takes it all in, picks up a glass of drink and just throws it against the wall. Ulrich, damn it! Damn it! My people infiltrated. This is... Ah! And the priestess goes over and just puts a hand on the shoulder of the commander. It has at least been found, my lady. That is better than being an ignorant, no? Aye, yes. Fine. You win. Alright. So the attack then. What? Go on then. When? So this Yellow Fang are going to attack. When? How? Where are their numbers? What are they actually doing? Isn't that why you're here? You found the man who's responsible, I suppose, or the leak, or the corrupted one.
I do step forward at this point, having calmed myself a bit, and also being the one that previously spoke at length to her why we should be the ones. Well, why we should be allowed to continue this investigation at all. And I say, well, that would be the next step, to try and find out who he's been meeting and hopefully being able to trace them back to its source. See where this goods is actually going and how far they've come in any sort of preparation. There are no guarantees, mind, that this attack is imminent or about to happen. But a lot of people are saying that the Yellow Fang is on the move. So we need to quickly, well, as quickly as possible, find out from where do they come from, how do we root them out, how do we plug their supply lines?
Well, whatever, I suppose. Anyway, in the meantime, she looks to Hildegund. Get everyone ready. emergency patrol on the walls. Get Astrid up and loaded. Get the tents ready. Everyone, wit war. And Hildegard simply walks off, and immediately you see orders being called out. Whatever happens next, this picket is now being alerted and manned. Soldiers are beginning to move into positions. Armed weapons are being readied. This is no longer an idle picket, but an active one. It seems, Kruger, as if your mission has been a success.
Well, that is good. The Empire will be safer this way, and so will Middenheim be. Our job here is done, I suppose. I'll also say that to the others. Well, I guess we've done what we were supposed to do. Perhaps best to head back to our employers.
You think? What about finding out more about where the supplies have actually gone and the extent of this and more information about where this attack is supposed to actually be? Are you sure that it's here at the picket?
You find yourself thinking, Kruger, well, that's what you thought. But then again, that map, the tick, it wasn't actually on the picket, it was on the brass keep. That tick. The same sort of tick that you remember was also on Castle von Wittgenstein. But the truth is, as you think about it, this is all starting to spread beyond your mission. Yes, you can follow supply lines, but, well, that's way beyond the city of Middenheim and this picket. That involves the whole of Middenland. It's going to take a lot of work.
It will, yes. Following that trace, it's a big job. It's perhaps a bit more than what we'll be able to manage by ourselves. But we can report back, and we can get the forces moving, and through that, hopefully, keep the city safe. And there's something else. That man, what he said, that us being here, it was a distraction away from something greater. And if that's the case, well, then we'd better head back and make sure that everything's all right.
Although, roll me an intuition check, Heinrich.
34 under 49.
You're not sure what it is, but something in your gut stirs a little. What Kruger said, of course, makes perfect sense, if the man was telling the truth. But that man didn't actually seem very well informed at all. What if this wasn't a distraction? You're not sure why you're thinking this, it's just something about that sentence doesn't sit right with you, not the way the man was acting.
Well, my dear friend Kruger, I know that you've spent a lot of your life believing criminals, and I understand why, but I am not so eager to turn back the town on the words of a condemned man. Something is here. I know Gerner has said it, I know Siegfrieda has said it. Something underneath, something around. I'm not so sure that our time here is done.
The commander then steps forward. Aye, well, you can't be leaving now anyway. It's almost dark, and I insist you stay at least one evening. I apologize, Lady Wittgenstein. I suppose you really were here to help. I'm sorry, it's just it was not what we'd heard. Although it's starting to seem like everything we heard about you three was maybe not correct.
We get that a lot.
I'll nod at that.
I wasn't personally offended.
And from what I've understood, they have then been to one of these places where something went down. And that was the Wittgenstein place. And that was when they were there and looking for Warpstone, I think, if I've understood things correctly.
That is what you were told. Although again, your new friends Gerner did mention it quite briefly. It's almost like they didn't want to talk too much about what happened in this town of Wittgendorf. At least not yet to you.
I start to pace a little bit in the room. Right, no, I think that's for the best. We should probably stay here for a little while at least. I mean, for the night, of course, that's what they said. I sound a bit manic at this point, and you can see, like, there's something slightly misty about me. It's like suddenly just the shoulder or something just kind of... It's like you can see through it for a second. Or my robe. And I say, I think, well, maybe Maybe they're after the same thing here that they were after at the Wittgenstein castle. Maybe they're out to actually infiltrate the Brass Keep themselves and get the warp stone from there. Maybe they're not in the Brass Keep at all. They're planning their own invasion and we're just observers of something else.
What do you mean? Why would they want to invade their own keep? It's already in the hands of the archenemy.
But they're not, according to your sergeant, they're not the archenemy. They're separate. This is another faction. The Yellow Fang has been existing, as far as we know, underground for a long, long time. Just not out of sight for us.
What are you... Sorry, I don't understand.
Ratmen.
Ratmen.
Yes, exactly. Not chaos. Not in its own, not demons.
Beastmen are chaos. They are aligned with them. They don't maybe always serve one being. I'm led to believe there aren't actually that many beastmen around here. You're saying this is a beast? They're a beastman. They're normally in the woods.
That's what I thought myself too. Of course they're chaos. Of course they must be. They must be servants of the archenemy, but he really truly believed that they were doing something else. Something sinister, definitely, but I wonder if they themselves aren't planning to infiltrate the keep, I say. And I pick up a bit of food and I just start eating as I'm walking there.
I'll rub my eyes looking at Gurner, given that he's become a bit misty, and if it's starting to get late, actually, I'll just say, yeah. Well, you're right about staying the night at the very least. I think I'm getting pretty tired. It's been a long day.
And the priestess comes forward and says, "Of course, let me get you... We can spare some rooms in the supply house." And then you hear sounds of alarm, shouting. Someone starts blowing a horn. The commander looks confused, and the priestess frowns and goes to a northern door. And then the commander goes as well and says, sorry, just a moment. What do you do?
Is it far away, that horn?
No. Just outside somewhere. You hear it again.
I will follow to see what's going on, and I'll nod to the others as well.
They're coming. They might be coming, I say. I start moving out. Be ready to fight.
You follow the commander and the priestess. You are led into a leisurely office. Granted, it's a bit small. This is not a palace after all, but this is perhaps the living quarters. It seems to lead out to a small little balcony. You see in the night several torches. This is not unusual. The picket is now active. There are already at least 100 men and women, you think, getting into position on the wall, and you can see plenty of people getting ready in the tents. Another 100. You can even see it looks like they've just finished loading up the cannon, the Imperial cannon, onto that single tower. But it's confusing. You listen to Gurner and you all look and you don't see anything. Not initially. You see a soldier suddenly run in. Commander, so sorry to bother you. What is it? Why are you sounding the horns? I don't see anything. Are we under attack? Well, no. It's a bit weird. Look for yourself. And he hands over the commander, this soldier, a long telescope. She looks into the dark and frowns. What the... She looks at the four of you. What do you do?
Is it as I thought? I go over to try and snatch the telescope from her.
You snatch it from her. She lets you have it. You look out into the dark of the night. And you can't see it at first, but with the telescope suddenly a bit of adjusting, there is something happening far away at the tower, the keep. Suddenly it is bright green. You can see there seems to be something coming off the walls, some sort of water or slime. And then you look around, and from this distance it's very hard to see, even with the telescope. There do seem to be shadows, figures. Lots of them. Lots of them. Something is happening at the keep. What do you do, Gurner? Everyone else, you're kind of looking out into the night, but you can't quite see this. It's quite far away. Although if you really squint, yes, you do notice there is something green on the horizon.
Can I make out if there is any sort of attack or any fighting or anything else that's going on in that mass of moving things?
Roll a perception check. -10.
Well, I'm going to re-roll that. No, it's no good.
Very hard. There's definitely something going on over there, but again, it's very far away. You can't even hear it, of course, from this distance, but something is happening. And then, Heinrich, you hear more horns. What do you do? They're blowing more horns all of a sudden.
There'll be time to talk about what's happening up there later. I'm sure we'll find out soon enough. I will, and then I'm going to leave the room. If there are war horns being blown, that means there's an attack. That's my interpretation of events. So I'm not going to be staring at maps when Sigmar knows what comes charging at those walls.
Certainly. Heinrich just storms out of the room, a man with purpose, leaving you free. And then Kruger. You see it. Something in the dark. Movement. It's hard to really see because, of course, you're looking out at what you know is just a wasteland and there's no lights out there, but you notice all the men on the walls are starting to call out things and there's a lot of movement. And then, again, you gonna turn your telescope and in the dark before the walls, there is movement. You suddenly all feel the ground begin to shake ever so slightly. There's suddenly some tremors in the area. Not so much so that you feel the entire place is about to come down, but still certainly alarming. You see the commander look to the priestess. The commander simply says, "Ready the walls. We are under attack. Ready everybody!" And then you begin to hear a bell. A bell, of all things, suddenly starts to chime out from the darkness. It is not a bell that sounds like anything you've heard before. Not a bell of a church tower or temple of Sigmar. It is not a small bell. It is a large, dark sound. It fills you with dread. Dong. 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 And even though you can't quite see it, Kruger, Gerner, or Siegfrieda, you feel it. Something is coming. Something is coming to the walls, and it will be here any minute. What do you do? What do you think to yourself in these moments, Kruger? You could run, you think to yourself. You might just be able to get to the carriage. But maybe not. What do you think, Kruger?
Well, Heinrich has said it out there. I'm not gonna let him go by himself. I'll look to the others and I'll say, well, I guess it's time to fight. And I'll head out as well.
What about you, Siegfrieda? Something is coming.
Well, if there's a war to be fought, it's unlikely I'm going to be fighting it, but there are going to be people getting injured. And who knows what mysteries may be uncovered by the type of creatures that swarm us. So yes, I go and join my companions behind the picket line, waiting for the oncoming charge.
And finally, Gunnar Stark. They are coming. You can feel it, you can see it with the telescope. In the dark, you start to think you see small traces of light. Green. Lots of them. Lots of them. You hear noise. Something is coming. And you have a feeling there are a lot of them.
I've only heard of impending battles like this from the stories of my grandfather that he used to tell us over and over again about him and his knights charging in, about the wizards flinging their spells up on their palisades and towers, about the endless waves of fighting. And now I look around at this lot, the rusty weapons as they're running to get ready. I'm thinking to myself, Should I fight? Is that what we're here for? To try and fight off an whole army for ourselves? Or is it better that one of us makes it back to report? Well, I'm going to start casting the spell Shadow Steed. I think I am going to fight this one from horseback, and if I need to make a dash for it, need to be the last one coming out, that steed will last me until morning.
Certainly will. Although, as you look down, it's going to be very tight. You're going to be finding it difficult, you think, to ride your horse well, but at least you'll be mounted. Surely that will help. So all four of you make your way to make your preparations as soldiers begin to panic. But they are not caught off guard completely. You did warn the keep. You did get people into position. And so they do their best to get ready as creatures come in the night and battle begins. Constantly, all of you hearing the sound of this horrible, horrible bell from the dark.
You have listened to an episode of Red Moon Roleplaying, where we play the legendary campaign, The Enemy Within, for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th Edition, published by Cubicle 7. In this fourth part of the series, we are tackling the Horned Rat. Joining us as players in this series are none other than Aaron Hammonds from Queen's Court Games and our dear friend Matthew Dawkins. The music was made by Flowers for Body Snatchers, Wordclock, Metatron Omega, Ager Sonus, Apocryphus, Halgrath, and Northumbria, featuring a number of collaborations with other artists, and was used with permission from their label, Cryochamber. Check out their website at cryochamber.bandcamp.com or their YouTube channel for some moody dark ambient. We'd like to give massive thanks to our champions of the Red Moon, Martin Heuschober, Simon Cooper, David, Julia, Camilla, Bob Lange, Cameron, Anchon, Graham Barey, Doug Thomson, and Lily for their generous support. And we would of course also like to thank all of our other patrons. Without your support, the show would not be possible. If you want to support our work, please check us out on Patreon. You can get access to our Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay bonus campaign, Rough Nights and Hard Days, as well as bonus campaigns for Cult Divinity Lost and Call of Cthulhu. On top of that, we also offer early and raw access to all of our recordings. You can also hear your name read on the show as a champion of the Red Moon, as well as play Cult with us. Most importantly, that supports what keeps the show going, so do check us out there. Thank you again for listening, and remember that Skaven are definitely not real. And even if they were, well, the Emperor has already dealt with that threat.